Guess what, spacemen? I don't like country music right now. Today on the Man Space.
Welcome to the Man Space Podcast. We're your hosts, Doctors Matt Brown and Rob Porter, and clinical therapist Mike Porter.
Welcome, spacemen. I have officially applied for I filed a copyright on the word Spaceaverse.
You did?
No.
That would have been so
I
rad,
should, though.
though.
I also just got a text from our editor, my nephew Robbie, who says his hard drive is getting full.
Do we need to buy him a hard drive?
Stuff.
Why is he keeping it all?
I don't know. We'll have to say, just go ahead and get rid of that, man.
Just dump it into
there-
the Spaceaverse.
Into this, we'll create new space junk.
Or we just-
That's another term for. Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, or we just
Microphone.
buy him an external hard drive.
That's he's saying. You know, one costs this much or this much.
Yeah.
That kid, he believes in this cause. I'm like, man, you might believe more than we do.
Maybe we should have him on the show.
We probably should.
Let him sit and like pitch why this is such an amazing thing.
Part of me is like, well, I mean, if it's so amazing, are you pitching it to your buddies? I don't know. He's
No, he's storing it on a hard drive in his basement.
in his cool, dank basement. Guess what we're talking about today? You guys already know. Don't guess. Oh, there's not anything on my. It was funny about whenever I talk and the purple thing shows up around my box. Nothing. Come on. Oh, there it goes.
It was delayed. So I'll just spoil it, but
Oh,
do you say black or white or black and white?
I say black or white. I think
Good.
because black and white is gray.
Both.
I mean, I guess it works either way. But technically, if you have black and white thinking, you're a gray thinker. It's all right.
Right.
You got both at the same time. But if you got or, you oscillate.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't. Well, I also call it all or nothing.
Yeah, you wouldn't say all and nothing.
Yeah, all and nothing, which means for our listeners today that you'll either love this episode or you'll hate it. There's no in between.
That
Pick
was
one.
really funny. Your audio cut out, but I
Yeah,
could
it did.
still hear you on Matt's.
It's so funny because your guys' screens both froze on me.
I think you spoke too soon for your Mac.
I mean, so far, considering last time I exited 7 times.
Yeah, and left
If you
just
can hang
Matt
the
and I.
whole episode, this is an improvement.
Man, I was so mad. This is like the time I got cut out talking with Brad Kennington. I love Brad. And I was like, Mom, I'm so angry.
Well, don't worry, dude. I'll probably fade in about 20 minutes.
Is that all you got left? How much did you say you have
How
left?
much battery I have left, and the
That's-
Spaceaverse is not abundant today. So
That's where you
have-
just slide over
We'll just-
next to Rob and just share a mic.
I probably will.
We'll do an 80s rock. We'll go back to back and do this. There's a couple shows my friend Ryan and I played where it's like, dude, we're doing back to back at this show. And we just sit back to each other. So stupid. Oh, I love telling people I was in a band. They're like, oh, so you're good at guitar? I'm like, no. But you're in a band. I know. I have
I
a terrible guitar.
I talked to a guy. This guy's rad. I think I've told you about him. He's the lead singer of a 90s cover band.
Nice.
90s.
Yeah.
Boring,
He wanted to be in a ska band in high school.
obviously.
And I said, why? And he goes, because I played trumpet.
What else are you going to do?
That's the only way to be cool if you play trumpet.
That's literally what I told people when I would try to get them. I was like, "Do you want to join our band?" Like, what do you mean? I was like, "Dude, no one's impressed by you playing trombone. Join a ska band. That's the only way you'll make any friends." I got
What
two.
about the accordion guy?
I got 2 trombone players off that.
Nice.
Totally worked. So today we have to do this fast so that we can get because Matt's the only one who ever says anything intelligent on this show. So we have to make sure.
I'll just come do it back to back with you.
I can't wait.
I was going to say, Rob, don't underestimate the power of the back-to-back.
You just have to cut it off so you can upload before you leave and come over to my
yeah.
laptop. How often would you say you see black or white thinking or all or nothing thinking in your practices? Because this is
Well, this is tricky.
never.
If I say all the time, what is that?
Matt's thinking all or nothing.
Yeah.
Is it regular? Is it often? Is it pervasive?
Yes.
All the things.
All of the above. But I think it's like really emotionally dependent.
Yep.
the mood they're in.
Like how escalated people are.
Meaning it goes up?
Yeah.
Hmm.
We try like to get more and more concrete and certain the more we're emotionally out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Like,
Well, and
and that's, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think relationships is probably an area where people are a little bit more prone to it.
What do you
Even
mean?
someone who may not be a black or white thinker out like normally, when it moves into relationships, they're so messy or have the potential to be so messy that we try to kind of regulate it, and we do it through black or white thinking.
But what about black and white thinking?
No.
Hmm. I think it's interesting, like, because this has come up, it comes up for me all the time. And I don't think people realize how often they do it. And it makes me wonder, I wonder what the ways I do it that I don't see that I do it. I don't think this is like some people do it and some people don't. I think everyone does it.
Black or white, Rob?
I think everyone does it to some degree. It's a song lyric from a band called The Matches. Go ahead.
So I'm curious though, because to me, some of what we keep joking about with the black or white, I don't know. Do you view black or white thinking the same thing as being like an absolutist? Like to me, I don't. Absolutes are different than black or white thinking.
I agree. So, like when someone's saying you always do this, I don't think that's necessarily black or white thinking.
Right. And so, like when we say all of our clients do this or everyone does it to some extent, I think, no, that's not black or white. That's just absolutist.
Yeah, I see that. One of the things I try to explain to clients when that happens, when they say, because people get really annoyed at that, and lots of therapists are like, well, hold on, it doesn't happen all the time. And I will say that, like, you guys be honest. And they're like, but I do explain that it's not like people are trying to lie and say, you literally do this all the time.
Right.
They are trying to say, this is so pervasive. I feel like I see it constantly. And I'm trying to
Right.
express to you how big of a deal this is to me by saying all the time.
Yeah,
So that's
it
a good
becomes the
delineation.
dominant.
Yeah, it's a good to delineate that, because I do think that is, I would classify that differently. And maybe Matt, you were talking about more of that. Like, were you talking more of the absolutism? Because black and white thinking to me is what I see it seems like it's more of almost a worldview. Like I see things as they either are or they aren't. I'm either good
Okay.
at this thing or I'm bad at this thing. And there's no, like, I'm learning this
Yeah.
thing.
I don't know. Maybe this is black or white. I feel like so I've been to like early on a bunch of trainings on CBT and
Uh-huh.
over the years we've all read lists of 10 to 15 cognitive distortions, and most of the time I'm like, it's kind of all the same thing in a way, right? Like I guess I'm talking more about like how flexible is your thinking, and
Yeah.
that seems to be moderated a ton by how emotional you are about whatever it is you're talking about. And I think but I have, now that I say that, if you say like it's a worldview, I think there are people that are actually very emotionally calm or even detached that say, like, no, this is just, no matter what, this is just right or this is just wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, and I don't know that they're saying they can't like have a relationship with somebody who thinks differently, but there's no like perspective taking going on.
Yeah.
There's no like, okay, well, I can respect or see how you would see it that way. It's just like, well, you're wrong.
Well, and I do think I see, like, I think you're right, Matt. I think,
Dang it, Matt's
I
right
s-
again.
I know, always.
Doesn't mean you're
Um,
wrong. Quit going black or white, dude.
Ah, there's only room for one of us.
I do think that as people's emotions increase, you still see an increase in black or white thinking, right?
I think it calcifies and solidifies.
Yeah, like, well, he did this, that must mean blank. No, it doesn't have to mean that, right? Just because your child, like I see it a lot with teens, like clearly my kid doesn't respect me because, and I think that's not what that means. Like it means your kid's 17. Like what did you think was going to happen when you said you can't have the car? Like your kid yelled at you. Yeah, because your kid's 17. It's not a respect issue. It's a I'm 17 and I don't know how to manage my emotions issue. But trying to convince the parent that there's some other version that exists is difficult. And so I do think you're right that as the emotions increase, like, it does become more rigid we become more rigid in our thinking. But Where was the other? Oh, crap. Oh, that's all I got, apparently. I forgot the second half.
Catch us next time on the Man Space. Here, here's what I was. I think it's good to delineate those. I think absolutism is something different, and I actually agree with you many times, Matt, with the cognitive distortions thing. I've thought, aren't these all just black or white thinking, or is that black or white thinking? When I say
No, I was going to
that?
say, it kind of feels like somebody who was trying to fill like 10 pages for their term paper and like,
Yeah.
I only got 6. I got to come up with 4 more. Yeah.
Yeah. So it does. I do feel like, I also do think for sure when panic sets in, I think that's the fight or flight thing kicks in, and that's where it's like you really double down on like it is this.
Mhm.
Like if I'm feeling calm, I'm more likely to say, I don't think I suck. I'm not great at this thing. But when I look over there and I feel jealousy at what somebody else has and I feel insecure, then it's like I suck. I'm always going to suck at everything, which is very like all or nothing. But I was thinking about this because, I mean, it's happened. I feel like this is something that this is the only really cognitive distortion that I ever really bothered pulling out because I feel like it is so pervasive, especially actually with religious clients where it's like it's either this or it's this. There's truth and there's not truth. There's either with God or against God. And it's like, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's accurate. There's still context in all of these things, and this is partly why I loved teaching ethics so much, is because I felt like ethics is very like, well, it worked over there, it's not going to work over here, and it'll work
Mhm.
tomorrow, but it's not going to work the next day. It's all very context specific. But I think the reason I wanted to bring this up is how often, and Mike, you're mentioning relationships. Like, I think sometimes there's a lot of like, he loves me or he doesn't, or she loves me or she doesn't. And for men, sometimes it's like, well, she's not having sex with me, so we're not happy. It's like, wait, what? You know, like I think I told you guys a long time ago when I was teaching assessments. It was when the DSM-4 still had the I can't even the global assessment of functioning, where you would
Mhm.
assign somebody like a number.
That's
Mike, you came in at 5, right? DSM-5,
Yeah.
and by then
Yeah,
we'd
tail
done
end of 4, I think.
yeah, there is no GA. There was no global assessment of functioning. It was
Yeah.
kind of a funny arbitrary scale, except it was
Mhm.
fascinating to see how often I would do it in semester after semester. I would do it with my students and say, I'm going to put up a scenario and I want you guys to like, based on these 5 quintiles, I want you to say, this is where I think they fall, and even assign a number. And pretty much across the board, we would always end up at least within the same quintile. There'd be some variation inside that. Also, it's fun to say quintile. Feels like you're
I
smart
was
for
going to
some
say, I
reason.
don't think I've ever heard that word until you just said it.
Well, did you not ever use the GAF, Matt?
The gaff.
The old GAF or the GARF?
The garf is even better.
The relational.
Us relational folks are like, can I get one?
It's like it got put in the back as an appendix. It was
Throw
like,
in the back.
sure,
These guys
guys.
don't use the DSM anyway. They won't care.
But I would ask. I was showing these scenarios, and there was one where it was like, this husband had like some sort of, he had like a heart attack, and so he had this surgery, and then it was doing this, and so mom was. He wasn't going to work anymore, and he was laying on the couch a lot, and mom was, doing everything around the house, and the kids were doing this, and this, and, their sex life, they weren't having any sex. And so I asked everyone, give your score. And everyone, this one was designed to be a representation of like the top quintile, like they're in, it was like 85 on the score out of 100. And, and everyone in the class put around there, except for one kid who put like 22. I was like, okay,
This guy doesn't have a pulse.
I was like, why'd you put 22? And he goes, well, it says right there, they're not having sex. And everyone in the class goes, he just had a heart attack. So he's like, oh, yeah, I can see how the context of that. But for him, it was like, if you're having sex, cool. If you're not, then the family is not functioning correctly. And I actually have a ton of clients where that's the case, where it's like, and then we talk about this all the time with dudes. It's like, I asked a dude just 2 days ago. So if she's not yelling at you and you guys are having sex, or things good, he goes, totally.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. So it's a little bit of all or nothing. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was going to say we've talked about it before, that's often, as men, we'll use sex as kind of the gauge of,
Yeah,
or the barometer of our relationship.
Right. So, but I think actually where it's more dangerous has to do with how we perceive ourselves. And this is like for men, especially when we've made everything in life so categorical and we've decided this is what it will look like to be a man. I have struggled myself with feeling like, well, I don't do this, this, or this. So I don't know that I'm very much of a man. Like in high school, I always felt like, well, I don't play any sports. So I guess I'm not like a man.
But you were in a
Or,
band.
but I was in that's
When
how
I was
I
in
got around it. I was
college.
like, I mean, I tried being a band in high school. It never worked.
Didn't work out for you.
We had a name, Etzel.
Etzel?
Etzel or Edsel?
Etzel. It had to do with like some guy that my friend met. He's like, he kept saying, Mike Etzel, Mike Johnson. And it was like, what? It changed. It's like, your name just changed. Anyway, we didn't do anything. I think it was like, Rob, try playing bass. I'm like, okay, this is pretty easy. Literally anybody could do this. That's not very cool. So, but I think because of that, it made me feel like I was always kind of less than or inadequate or whatever. And I think inside relationships, we do it where it's like either you hit this mark for me as a husband or you don't. And if you don't, then I'm not happy with you. And there's no in between of like, I think for female partners, or in this the context I'm describing, of like, well, I can see these attempts he made. Like I had somebody else in my office where I said, but what has he done? She's like, he's done nothing. And I said, well, I mean, what about this? I highlighted the fact that he's actually speaking up. I was like, don't you want that? She's like, well, yes. And I said, I listed off like 2 or 3 things. Didn't he also do this? And she's like, oh, okay. But she was only looking for one thing. It had to be this way, or he didn't love her. And so I think it happens a lot that I think it puts us in a place where, especially like, for example, with religious thinkers, where you either are or you aren't. So you're either good or you're bad. And so if you do everything perfectly, you can be good. And so if you're not doing everything perfectly, you have to lie so that you can keep feeling like you're doing things perfectly. Otherwise, you're bad and you're out. But the hard part is you've lied now. And so what do you do?
You're double bad.
Yeah. You're going to get kicked out twice. Wait, what if I do that? Just like flowers and peace symbols? Nothing.
No
If I did
balloons.
it like this, that's rude in Britain, right? Isn't that rude? It's like the bird in
don't
Britain.
know.
This will get you balloons.
No, it won't.
Yeah, it will.
Oh, dude. Poor listeners are like, what the crap is this?
I think I've
Let's go
gotten it
find the
this way,
Kelsey Brothers
too.
podcast.
But
So
See-
here's what go ahead.
well, I guess I'm curious. Like,
No, you're not.
okay, I'm not. We were like you brought up religious thinking, right? And it made me think like, yeah, there's a lot of that kind of you're either with or you're
Yeah, for us
against.
or against us.
And I guess I'm curious, like, why is that the way we do it?
Well, that's a good question. Matt? I have some answers, but Matt's probably got smarter ones.
No, I don't know about that. No, I think it's kind of what we've been saying. It's like when you're in that place of maybe being highly emotionally reactive or like really, I guess either way, you're still emotionally reactive if you're really tied to a position. It's kind of like, I need to know where you stand so I know what to do with you. And I'm going to probably like tend more towards if there is any sign of you not being reliable or not being safe or not being whatever, then I'll just spit you out, put you in the bad category because it's easier. Then I don't have to think about you. Then I know, I just need to defend against you and keep you far from me. But I think that's where it becomes hard in relationships because it's like you get those mixed messages where one partner is like trying to create closeness by telling you every reason why they don't want to be close to you. And it's like, well, what do you want me to do then? Right. I think that I see that a lot where it's like, we've said this before where we might want to just ask people if everything you're thinking about them is true, why are you here?
Right.
Like, and then I think that does break out of that black or white thinking a bit. Then it's like, well, because these are some things that I do value. But again, I think if you kind of like strip away the thinking, the core issue always, at least in relationships, is like, are my feelings actually going to matter to you? So right now I might have this really like bulletproof and certain and dogmatic way of describing things because I'm arguing with you to like prove a point, which really is, if I just said I felt blank, again, maybe to men, a lot of men would be like, well, why? You have no reason to feel that way. It's like, well, here, let me give you like a really solid reason why that we can argue about, and I can prove you wrong because I can probably articulate better my complaints than you can. And then men will just be like, well, I don't want to feel like that. So I'll just say, well, just tell me what to do. And like, just keep cycling around, I think.
Yeah, I think some of what you're describing, whether relational or not, I think we've mentioned many times on the podcast before that humans don't like ambiguity because there's no certainty in it. So the black or white is like, it's a way of saying, okay, I know I can count on this. So I have to have this because if I don't have this, then that means it's too uncomfortable. So like for a spouse, he's doing this and he loves me, or he's doing this and he doesn't. Then I know I can make a decision. But if I have to live in this space where it's like, I don't really know, or from a religious standpoint, it's like, you're either good or you're bad. It's like, it has to be one or the other, because otherwise, how do you ever know? And I think that makes people very uncomfortable to say, I don't know. I don't know where I stand or what this means for me. Like, so it has to be either this is true or that is true. And it can't be that both are true and both can exist. And how do I make sense of these two things that might seem contradictory? So it has to be one or the other.
Well, and I think from a teaching standpoint, like that's something that has to be considered, right? Particularly if you're looking like I was thinking about when I used to teach my students, and I would say, look, here's this project I want you to do. Here's the 3 things it has to have, right? And I would tell them these 3 things, and inevitably they would start like, well, what about this? Could it be this? And I'm like, it has to be these 3 things, right? And I would just keep going back to the 3 things, and it's because the more that I started wading into this, like, well, yeah, you could have that version of it, or that version of it's fine too. It just became this thing where I was like, no, we're going to spend all day exploring all of these different things. I don't have time for this. Like, I need to get to the next thing. And so I think there is something to be said for like, yep, it's this or it's that. Why? Because the gray area is so gray. I don't have time to sit and delineate all of the different possibilities for you, because it is so highly individual that I can't begin to, if I'm teaching a large group or even if I'm teaching 3 people, it's going to be so different for each of them. I would spend way too long trying to get into all of the, well, for you, here's where it's going to be okay. And for you, it's going to be okay over here. No, it's this. And I would tell my students, look, if you want to do it and it doesn't contradict these 3 things, do it. If I don't like it, I'll tell you. Like, you'll know. I'm not going to let you turn it in and have it be wrong. And I said, as long as it doesn't contradict these 3 things, we're good. And it made them super uncomfortable. They hated it. So there is a lot of truth to the black or white, right? Like, we love lists as people. We love to know, like, here's our checklist of things, right? But yeah, I think there's something to be said for the simplicity of it. Like, it is simple to teach black or white.
I do agree that there are times when it's good to just say, I'm doing this. Like, otherwise you can reach the analysis paralysis stage where it's like,
Right.
I'm overthinking, I can never make a decision, instead of saying, well, just pick one.
Yeah.
And that sometimes it's okay where it's like, well, either this works or it doesn't. And it's like, or, you do it and you find 18 different things you learned, but it didn't work, quote unquote. But so I understand there's that element. And I also understand that with kids, I'm not going to say, well, it really depends. Depending on each kid, I might. But generally speaking, you're going to say, look, pick one of these 2.
Right.
The problem is we don't move past that as adults, I think, way too often. We still treat ourselves like kids where it's like, it's either this or it's that. Pick one. Or, you either love me or you don't. It's like, there's a lot of variation inside of that. So because of time, I want to move into this idea of like, how do you, because I have this thing lately that I've been doing because I liked it a lot, and I heard it on a Saint Malcolm Gladwell podcast. He's my Saint Bernay, which actually I've used before, but never. I liked his. I was like, that's a really gooder. That's the word I'm looking for. Way to phrase that. I'm settling on gooder. So, how do you pull people out of that? Like, I identify. We'll say that. I'm going to assume that with clients, I want to highlight to them, hey, look, you have this way of thinking that says either this or this, and this is why that's dangerous. When I can put the emotional intensity behind it that says, if you keep thinking like that, you can either succeed or fail. There is no in between. You're either good or bad. And that activates their anxiety. That's like, I don't want that. I hate that feeling. And I want them to know, like, I don't want that feeling. Because then they'll buy in and say, cool, what do I have to do to get away from this? So what do you do, boys,
To
help pull people out of black or white thinking?
oh, well, I guess it depends.
Oh, hey-oh.
Like if it's somebody who's more aware of generally how thoughts are affecting them, I think you can just do what we're saying. Like this is, here's a list of cognitive distortions, right? Like what are some of the ones you identify with? And you can kind of just talk more overtly about like, okay, you might want to start catching yourself when your thinking's trending this way, because you know how that makes you feel, that how it affects you, how that affects you in relationships. But I think if they're really stuck, I think one of the most powerful ways to help somebody kind of see where they're at is just to do it right alongside them. So this is how you view things, right? And you just kind of like embrace it. And then I think sometimes that underlying thing that I was talking about before, which is nobody's taking me seriously, nobody values this, I'm disproving all of that by sitting right next to you and saying, okay, so you're the type of person that thinks this and looks at it this way. And almost always, I think what happens is there's like this flexibility that comes where they're like, yeah, I mean, I can also see, there you are, we're out of it, right? But if I jump right over to like, oh, so really? That's what I was trying to get you to do, is to think about this. Like, then it's lost because it's manipulative, right? But if it's genuine, like, no, I really look at you as somebody who is viewing it this way, and I am giving value to that way of viewing it. And until you feel like you have the capacity to emotionally calm down and view it differently, you will be stuck. If I try and pull you out of it, or like convince you out of it, or use facts, or like all the things we do that are so helpful in our collective societal dialogue.
That's another band name.
Yeah. Collective societal CSD.
You guys sitting seeing CSD this weekend, man?
Yeah. I guess it depends on where the person's at. Those have been things that have been helpful for me, but
I like that.
Most often I think, like I do one of two things. Usually I'll start by trying to say, hey, so this is how you're seeing the situation, right? And then I'll challenge them, like, what's another reason it could be happening? And often they'll be a little hesitant to give anything. And so I'll tell them, look, there's no right or wrong. Like, it can be as ridiculous as it possibly, like, I don't care how out there the idea seems. What's another reason this could happen? To just try to get them to push themselves. Like a lot of times I'll have people where they're just like, I don't know, where they're so clearly locked into this reason that they've found. They can't see anything else. And then I tend to just lean into what if questions. Like, I love what if. I hated it as a teacher because kids love to do it all day long. What if this? Oh, stop. But as a therapist, it's super helpful to just be like, hey, what if this is, like, what if it's this? Is that, and then I'll ask them, like, is that a possibility? Like, in your spouse, can you see something in their personality that might suggest it could have been this thought process or this reasoning? And they'll be like, well, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And then I'll challenge them with another one. Well, what if it's this? Just to kind of get them a couple. And then I'll just kind of make them do it every time for a while, until like I had one lady tell me, she goes, now every time someone does something, I'm like, all right, but why else could he be doing it? And I'm like, there you are.
It is funny how much repetition, like, I think clients sometimes like, you said that before. I think, yeah, you're not doing it yet. But because I think those are both the idea of walking like kind of meeting somebody where they are and walking them through. That's not the way you phrase it, Matt, but kind of that idea of walking through it with somebody going through it. Mike, you're kind of saying similar things. And I've done that with clients a lot, to say, look, isn't it also possible that it could be this? Even if I said that, they're like, no. And I think, well, you don't know. And sometimes I'll make up some really stupid story. What if it's like aliens came in and they did this and this? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, you don't actually know, do you? That's like, I want them to recognize I don't know. So why am I picking the worst possibility?
Right.
The one that is most painful. Why would I pick that one and say, that's clearly the story?
Which I actually use mom a lot in this because
Delightful Canadian.
right, you gotta love the delightful Canadian. My mom, if you're ever driving with her and someone cuts you off and you try to complain about it, my mom goes, "Well, they're probably on their way to the hospital."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "No, mom.
I think I saw
Sometimes,
blood squirting in the car.
right? Like, no, mom. Sometimes drivers are just like douches. Like that's a real possibility. But no, my mom will sit and come up with just like, well, they're probably on their way here. Well, this probably happened to them.
Yeah.
And I'm just
because
like,
it's easier.
right? Because for mom, it's like, look, maybe they are just douches, but maybe there's this other thing, and if it's the other thing, then I'm going to be softer towards it. So
it's just like, and then I'll tell you the thing that has been sticking out with me, but it's just like the thing that Matt sent that we've all seen recently on TikTok and social media, where it says, if you don't think farts are funny, then you're a loser because you're choosing to have less joy in your life with the same amount of farts.
Yep.
So something like that, I feel like, yeah, that's a good example, because actually now I feel like, look, I mean, you can hate farts, but people are going to keep farting.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that the other thing I've been adding into things recently, I feel like it's been helpful for me and it's been helpful for people. I have a lot of clients right now who are kind of figuring out, do I stay or go, which is very categorical. And so I have to open up other possibilities of like, what would stay look like, or are there variations of go? And then I have a lot who are trying to figure out the same idea, but religiously, like, do I stay or go? And trying to open up possibilities, because, for example, in the religious context, it's asking this, and this of me. And I'm saying, well, do you have to do all those things? Can you do one of those things or none of them? And the phrasing that we've been using a lot is, look, that's not where I am right now. I don't know where I'll be tomorrow, but right now, this is where I'm at. So it doesn't have to be black or white. Somebody recently talking about like, well, I'm not good at this thing. I really want to be good. I suck at it and I'll never be good at it. And I said, or you're not good right now. Like, big deal. So what? You're not good right now. And just trying to tell people over and over, just use that phrase right now. Like the thing that Malcolm Gladwell says was like, when I started this off with, I don't like country music right now. I'm pretty confident I'll never like country music. I mean,
I'm going to win you over when we go get drinks.
Do you like Irish
I'm
pub
play
music?
One artist for you that I think might
Shania
just get you out of your black and white. No, and I'm not a huge country music fan, but I'll just say that.
Do you like Irish pub music, Rob?
To be determined, to be seen, to be
TBD'd.
heard. I can't wait, because I mean, there are variations, I guess you could say, of country that I like. I like some bluegrass stuff, but I don't know if you put that in the category of country.
Yeah.
So, but that was just a side note, because I have decided, look, right now I don't like country, because it did occur to me, listen to this podcast with Malcolm Gladwell and Rick Rubin. It's from one of their, a variation of their Broken Record podcast where they talk about music. But Malcolm Gladwell has said, well, I've learned so many times that something I didn't like growing up, I did like later on. And I was talking with my kids the other day, and one of them said, like, well, no, I'm just not that kind of person. I said, right now, you think you're going to be this kind of person when you're 30? Like you're 15 or 12 or what? Like, seriously? But we like to think, well, this is me and this is it. That's all it's ever going to be, which is very black or white, and saying, no, this is you right now. You're not, I don't know what you're going to be. And it does open up the thing we've talked about many times of like, well, I don't know, be curious and maybe a little optimistic of like, hey, it could just as easily be that an alien entered into their body and they're driving their car like a crazy person because they don't know how to drive a car. Is that realistic? No, but it's a possibility, I guess. Like, hey, right now it could be the case. I just think for me, it's been very valuable to just consider the idea of like, this is just where I am right now, because then it does also make me feel like I don't know what's going to come in the future and I'm open to it, which means it doesn't have to be either it's this or it's this. I either love country or I hate it. There will probably be some things that I could say, and there are some artists in country music that I can say, I appreciate what they do, or I've really liked that drummer. One thing that I've been able to say consistently is I cannot stand, and I'm trying to think of a contrary to this, I cannot stand slide guitar.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me feel
Not even
sad
George
inside.
Harrison's slide guitar?
No.
Huh.
Ben Folds will use it sometimes. I'm like, stop it, dude. Oh, it makes me feel sad inside.
What is it?
When you say for now or right now,
yeah,
it reminded me of a Ray Romano bit where he's like his son was like, I don't know, 19 or 20. He came home at 4 a.m, and Ray's like, "What? So you coming home at like 4 a.m?" And his son's like, for now.
Yeah. That's what I
Don't
mean.
pin me down to breaking a rule all the time, Dad. It's just for now.
It's actually a good example too, because as parents, we do that. We actually would do the same thing to our kids. Like, you're always going to be an idiot. It's like, I mean, I'm doing this right now. I'm not going to do this forever.
Yeah.
And it does. I just think it kind of helps us relax instead of thinking everything has to be this way. I think that's what black or white thinking does. It must be like this, and it becomes very rigid. But saying it is like this right now, so I'll adapt to this right now. Matt, you used the word flexibility in your thinking. And we've mentioned in a previous podcast, I've been asked, this has been a common answer for me when people ask me, what's it take to have a healthy marriage? One of my answers now is always adaptability or flexibility. Like, you have to be willing to say, well, this has changed. Like, sometimes I'm tired of hearing people where I'm like, you have enough life experience to know that your relationship was not going to be 7 years in what it was 7 weeks in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, someone saying we don't have sex as much as we used to. I think, of course you don't.
Yeah.
Like, you've been together for a long time, and it's like he used to be all excited when he'd see me naked, and now he's not. It's like, I mean, he's seen it many, many times now, you know, like, but it's not to say that it's just like, no, it's just different context. It doesn't mean anything, you know, and even if it was, it's like, we must be falling out of love. Because somebody searched recently, was like, they were like, well, so I looked it up, and it's like, signs your boyfriend wants to break up. And I was like, or it's just what a relationship does over time.
Mm-hmm.
And right now you're saying, hey, right now it's not like I want it to be. Let's talk about this. And then we go back to our other episode where we say, have a conversation.
Talk about it.
So stop being black or white. Oh, Mike, you have something
Well,
to say.
no, I was going to say this was when I was the last few years that I was teaching, this was a big thing in education, right? They refer to it as a growth mindset.
Right.
A fixed mindset or a growth mindset. Fixed mindset is black or white. Growth mindset is very much yet, right? That was the phrase that we would use with students. Well, I just can't get it. Can't get it yet, right?
now.
Where my
Right
students
now.
got so tired of hearing me, they would say something and I'd be like, yet. And they'd just be like, oh, stop it. But it's true. There is just something like, I'm kind of watching this with my daughters right now as they're, you know, meeting different kids their age, and they're kind of like, well, no, Dad, they're like this. And I said, yeah, but maybe they're not like that. No, Dad, they are. And I'm like, okay, like, clearly I got to work on this, because they've pigeonholed these kids where I'm like, but they might not be. Like, sure, they have money, or sure, they have this or that, but like, they still might be really cool. Like, you don't know, because you don't talk to them. Well, because they don't talk to us yet. They don't talk to you yet.
Yeah.
But to them, they're just certain they like, nope, this is the way it is.
As Matt
The
said,
Space Force is real low, so do I hit leave?
Yeah, I think you hit leave.
Probably. And then come join Rob.
Pull the hatchet out!
I was going to say, Mike, what you should try doing is saying to your kids, hey, guys, I don't love you yet.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what it does. But I guess actually we're probably nearing the end anyway, since Matt had to pull the hatch and leave. Escape. So
Pull up the bucket of M&Ms.
You got a bucket of M&Ms?
yes.
I can't hear anything.
No, I'm just showing Matt's crotch.
I was going to say, there's still bucket of M&Ms on the table.
He's sitting on a big old bucket of M&Ms that I bought a while ago.
Oh, the big one from Halloween.
Yeah. Day after. Anyway.
It was like $30 instead of 60.
So, spacemen, stop black or white thinking. If you do, you're a loser.
Because you'll have the exact same amount of parts.
Black and white.
They'll just be sad thoughts. And then come back and catch us next time on the Man Space. I like the Man Space right now. Here's something I wanted to ask you guys. Have either of you listened to the Jason Kelsey, Travis Kelsey podcast?
No.
No, but I saw that clip where Jason started crying, talking about retirement.
Oh, yeah. And Travis is like, it's good, man. Or like, let it go, man. Or something like that. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually really like both those dudes. And I've never listened to their podcast because Perhaps ironically, I hate podcasts. I don't hate them. I like Malcolm Gladwell's podcast. The rest of them are like boring. So if people don't want to listen to our podcast, I get it. Shh, tell your friends. But here's what I wonder. I've never heard their podcast. So I was hoping you guys had, so you could tell me, actually, they do a lot of this, or they talk a lot about this. Every single clip I've ever seen. And for some reason, I was getting tons of clips in my TikTok feed, because that's all I do now is stare at TikTok.
Good job.
I'm lying. I don't. But man, so I'm listening to the things I've seen on their podcast, the Kelsey brothers. I don't know what it's called, like High Achievement or something like that.
New Heights.
That sounds right.
Yeah,
And
I looked
honestly,
it up. I'm going to give it a shot.
I think they're both hilarious dudes. I like them both. They seem like, Jason in particular sounds like a really sharp dude with like clear priorities, and like they were talking about how he showed up to, practice or a game wearing like these nasty old sweats. He's like, I'm not going to drop a bunch of money on like clothes so I can look good while I walk in, but so I feel like he's a solid. His wife has been on the episode a couple times, but I've noticed in all their episodes, they just, the parts I've seen, and maybe they leave out all the juicy nuggets, but they're just talking about whatever. Like I saw when they're talking about the top 5 fast food hamburgers, which first of all, somehow their number 1 was Burger King.
What?
But I feel like if you're going to say fast food, maybe they're speaking large chains.
Yeah, or taking out those in between fast food joints.
Or when was the last time you had a Whopper?
Sometimes they're really good, but they're
I had
so
a-
hit or miss.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel
Plus-
like it's real consistent.
Rob and I
I
have
haven't had
some,
one in a while, but like that taste, you can't beat that in fast food.
Rob and I have had some questionable experiences with Burger Kings.
Oh.
Like
One
there
time-
was the first time we quit eating it, we ordered, got home, and our buns were like soaked. Like
I
they'd
don't know
been
what they
sitting
were
in
soaked
water
in.
or something.
This is
Oh.
disgusting.
Yeah. So then we didn't eat there for years. We finally went back
I've been
after
to
the
one-
freeze.
I had another problem where I was like gross because it was like soaked in mayonnaise a different time. That was like, it was like, what the, it was disgusting.
And then we went back after the freeze. And as we were walking out, we looked up and could see in all of the vents dead mice,
Dead bats.
Wait, like inside the restaurant?
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting in the restaurant and the air conditioner is dripping, and it hit my arm. I was like, oh, and I looked up and I was like, what is that? I could see something in it, and then we were refilling our drinks, and I walked. I was like, that's a dead bat.
like and it was like multiple. Where I thought,
my gosh.
if the air kicks
was
on,
this?
that's going to be blowing dead bat all over
Just
me.
right over there.
Well, it was the freeze, dude. Where are the bats going to go? Burger King.
Apparently,
Maybe that was just a fluke.
but those are
Probably,
like,
but it's enough to be like, yikes.
yeah, like
Here, I
yeah.
will say this: if I'm going to buy like a crappy cheeseburger,
their crappy cheeseburgers are awesome.
They're my favorite. Actually, I like
Yeah.
them more than McDonald's.
The taste of the flame
I agree.
patty.
Yeah, I agree.
They're good.
My-
It's just they're so inconsistent.
So my friend makes a candied jalapeno bacon,
Nice.
and we took it, and we were having a bad
Real
movie night.
good. Sorry,
And
I was laughing at my reaction. Sorry, bad movie night. Candy bacon.
My friend brought all of these. He was in charge of bringing like pizza or something, and he thought pizza was lame, so he brought a whole bunch of like Burger King burgers and cheeseburgers, just like a whole bunch. And so we put the candied bacon on those cheeseburgers. Oh my gosh, it was like the greatest
Nice.
cheeseburger I've ever had.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Here's what's funny about this conversation. I was thinking, the reason I brought this up is because I was watching the show and thinking people have complained that we meander too much. Now, ironically, it's taken forever just to get to the point of why I even brought this up. But I was watching theirs and thinking they meander like crazy. They're just talking about whatever all the time. But the difference is,
They're NFL superstars and
Yeah.
we're not.
yeah, no one gives a crap about our meanderings. They could talk about the exact same things.
Yeah.
But because they're who they
They're
are,
celebrities.
everyone wants to hear it. So fascinating.
It's not topic.
Yeah,
It's
apparently.
the person.
That's what's so upsetting about social media is it's like, well, this guy said this. I'm like, well, who's that guy? Well, he has 1 million followers. Well, so you broke up with your
Yeah.
boyfriend because that guy has 1 million followers? Anyway.
Remember that episode we did way back on collective illusions?
Oh, that's right.
Same thing, man. It's like, well, if 100 If 1 million people are following him, I better do it too.
Man, it's really upsetting. Also, I think I have cedar fever.
Congratulations.
I think it finally caught up. People say that happens in Austin all the time. You live there for
It did.
15
Like,
years.
Live here for long enough.
Eventually,
Yeah.
the cedar will get you.
Mine, it took 8 or 9 years. And mine was still always super mild compared to anyone else.
And this could just be a cold, but who knows? Also, I should say I've decided that Mike, your friend, wanted to be on the motherboard,
Yeah.
Oh, soda guy.
but I thought since maybe we should. Because I was going to say, if I make a comment about this, then Matt's going to get some sort of delivery on his doorstep. But I was like, maybe
See, I thought about that though.
Let's
Except he
test
doesn't
that,
have
soda
Matt's.
guy.
He doesn't have Matt's address.
Soda guy, we will text you.
He'll just text you.
We'll
That's
text
true.
you my address, and we'll see if you come through. And if you do, we might just make you some sort of Star Trek shaped name tag,
That
and we'll
says
name you Fountainess.
patron saint of the man space. He's Fountainess. He's because I got a delivery on my doorstep after making a joke on here, and I was like, Becky, some guy was delivering food, like bags. I was like, somebody's delivering stuff to our doorstep. I was like, it looks like groceries, and I was like, oh. He went back to his car. I was like, he's figuring out it's the wrong address. He'll come back up. I was like, he's bringing more stuff. So Becky walks up and she's like, hey, you have the wrong address. And I'm walking out there and she's like, Rob, it has your name on it. I was like, oh, that's patron saint of the man space coming through because I
told
made
Rob
my joke.
When he asked, the delivery guy said, anonymous. He wishes to remain anonymous. The prize turkey right alongside your Coke.
Prize turkey. What day is this? We hope you enjoyed the episode. Please remember to
Rate
and
review.
please, we desperately need it.